Joining me on India First, live from Jerusalem, is David Mencer, top aide and spokesperson of Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Mr. Mencer, welcome. Iran says US and Israel started the war. Iran will end it on its terms. Is Iran doing better than you expected? What is your assessment, Mr. Mencer, on day 11 of this conflict?
Gaurav, it's good to be with you again. Thank you for having me and allowing me to share with you the latest position from Israel's perspective. We set out a very clear objective in this war. That is to remove the nuclear threat and ensure that the Iranian regime can never obtain nuclear weapons. That has been our overwhelming objective. And when you say that Israel started this war, just a reminder for your viewers that we will never allow a regime that has, since for the last 47 years, been shouting death to Israel, death to America. Now, experience has taught the Jewish people that when someone says that they wish to kill your people, to wipe your nation off the face of the earth, then experience has taught us to listen to them and to believe them. And I tell you, Gaurav, we do believe them. When they shout death to Israel, we know that the most dangerous weapons in the world can never go into the possession of the most dangerous regime in the world. So we're working very hard to destroy Iran's war machine. We're severely degrading their ballistic missile program as well, but also their proxies. We're taking apart their ability to support their proxies as well. But I would say at the moment, we're ahead of schedule and we're doing very, very well.
Okay, so you say you're ahead of schedule and you're doing very well. Despite early decapitation or assassination, as Iran puts it, the regime did not collapse. There is a new supreme leader. The system appears to be in place, holding back and fighting back. So it's holding and fighting back. Are you in for a long-drawn conflict, sir?
Well, the Prime Minister has said very, very clearly that it will continue as long as is necessary. He made clear this is not years long, but it will continue as long as is necessary to ensure that the existential threat from the Iranian regime is neutralized. So that's why our IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, are striking military and regime targets in Iran in close coordination with our partners, the United States. And I'll tell you, the difference between what Iran is telling you and the truth is that Iran are focusing almost exclusively here in Israel on residential targets, on places where ordinary people live. I've told, I may have said this before, but you know, just last week I visited with the Prime Minister the small town of Bet Shemesh, which was hit by one of these Iranian ballistic missiles. The first thing I did when I got there is I looked around. There were no military sites there. There were no police sites there or any symbols of the state. There was a synagogue there, and that ballistic missile hit that synagogue and killed people hiding in the shelter, taking shelter there. It killed 9 people, 3 children from the same family. Iran's objective is to instill terror into our people. That is the nature of their terrorist regime. They are firing at our civilians. We, on the other hand, are firing at the terrorist masterminds and the controllers of this regime, and we've had tremendous success.
Okay. Though President Trump says many of the war aims have been met and the war may be ending soon, are the US and Israel on the same page, Mr. Mencer?
Look, I can share with your viewers, Gaurav, that the Prime Minister and the President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, are in daily contact, sometimes more than once a day, on the phone. And both of us agree, and this is what I think President Trump means. He says that we've achieved major operational success against Iran. The Israeli Air Force has achieved significant aerial superiority over Iran. In fact, just today, our Air Force was in operation again, taking out military targets in Tehran. And all the while, we're striking these targets across Iran. thousands of strikes of targeted missile production sites, military infrastructure, air defenses, and weapons transfers to Iranian proxies such as Hezbollah. All of these things have been taken out because our message is extremely clear right now, and the Iranians would do well to listen to my voice. Israel now has the freedom to strike any target in Iran that threatens our security, and that's precisely what we're doing.
But right now, sir, it's the global energy security that's in jeopardy. Take, for example, the Strait of Hormuz that remains shut. Oil and gas prices are rising across the world. There's intense turmoil due to this. Is there an off-ramp? Because Iran says, let alone any talk of surrender, despite the series of strikes that you mentioned, let alone surrender, there is no question of a ceasefire either.
Look, our decision to take forward this war was taken with the knowledge that this is precisely what Iran would do. It would try to hold the rest of the world hostage by raising oil prices. President Trump has made clear that the US armed forces have destroyed, practically all but destroyed, the Iranian Navy. Both of our governments are working on a plan to make sure that the Straits of Hormuz are open, because Iran no longer has a navy. And President Trump has also made clear that US warships and US firepower will escort oil through those straits to make sure that this element whereby the Iranian regime are trying to blackmail the entire world will not succeed. The Prime Minister Netanyahu, and President Trump are very focused on this issue, and you can be sure that this element whereby the Iranians are trying to blackmail us will not succeed.
Okay, so you say Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US President Donald Trump, they speak almost every day, sometimes more than once. The IRGC has just made a statement that they will now deploy missiles with a payload of more than 1 ton. US assessment that more than 90% of missile strike capabilities of Iran have been taken down. Close to 83% of their drone strike capabilities have been taken down. What remains, sir, is that even more lethal, newer generation missiles, and is the worst yet to come in this conflict.
Look, we're well aware of Iran's capabilities. We're also well aware of our anti-missile technology. The defense shield which we've developed here, thank God, is very, very effective. It's in the high 90s%, but still it's not hermetic. And missiles and ballistic missiles, including cluster bombs, which are illegal under international law, are still finding, a few of them are finding their way through into Israel. I'll tell you, from Israel's home front perspective, our people remain resilient despite these Iranian attacks. Iran continues to launch these missiles and UAVs towards our civilian populations, but our defensive systems are working, and we're encouraging all of our people, which they are doing now to a very, very high degree, strict adherence to our home front command instructions, which tells people when and how to take cover. And that message is saving lives. So I'll tell you, from Israel's point of view, our home front is strong, we are resilient. And I'll also tell you something else, Gaurav, which maybe doesn't come across in international media. From left to right in this country, and you know, Gaurav, because you understand Israeli politics, you know that this country has a very vibrant, charged political environment. From left to right, there is a unity. And that unity is for victory. Victory to make sure that this Islamist regime, which threatens not only us here in Israel, but the rhetoric which they use here in Israel, which we take seriously, is the same rhetoric used by Islamists on the streets of New Delhi and in other parts of India, which is why we are so appreciated what your Prime Minister Modi, said to us here in Israel just a few days ago. He said that Israel and India, Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu, share a zero tolerance for terrorism.
So zero tolerance to terror is your aim, and this operation, you say, sir, will continue as long as it takes to remove the regime in Iran, and we'll be tracking that story very closely. David Mencer, for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks.